Hi guys, welcome to another tutorial of data science course. So here till now we discussed about the measures of central tendency, measures of dispersion, right? What is in the stat course, right? So today we will discuss that how the stats is dealing with the huge number of data, with the huge amount of data, right? So what this huge data means? Huge data means that you are dealing with a number of rows and columns, but that number of rows and columns is in a large amount, means your data set is very large. It basically deals with large amount of rows and columns. It's not that small data set in which we use stats is used in very complex data sets, right, where we train large models, large language models, right? So that's the data that is used in the statistics. So now come to the measures in stats. In last video I told that there are main two measures in the stats, that are measure of central tendency and measure of dispersion, but there are another two measures also, that are measures of variance and measures of shape. These are also very important measures in stats. So basically the measure of central tendency were the mean, median and mode, right, that were used to predict the best average value that we discussed in the last video, right? But measure of variance, as you see that here the name is the variance, right? So what does variance means? It means that how the data is varying. We discussed in the last video that variance means the spreading out of the data, right? When the data spreads into many parts, that we will also discuss that what the spreading of data means, right? The standard deviation and the variance, right? So that's from there we come this measure came, basically that the measure of variance, it is related to the standard deviation and the variance, that the CV, the root of the sigma, that the sigma and the sigma square that we discussed in the last video, right? So that's the basically the measure of variance. Now come to the measures of dispersion, that we also discussed, that range, IQR, right? So they were the measure of dispersion. Measures of shape is new in this video, right? What does this thing tells to you, that what is the measure of shape? So basically the measure of shape is used to describe the data in the form of a graph, a scatter plot or a pie chart, right? So when you just interpret the data, when you just visualize the data, how the data will give a proper pattern, so that will be done with the help of measure of shape, that will be done with the help of these graphs, scatter plots, pie chart, box plot. Also we will discuss that how these graphs, box plot and scatter plot, pie charts are made, right? So this is basically the measure of shape. These are used for shaping the data, right? So now come to the another part, that is when we just discuss that what is the role of the measure of central tendency. They are used to just predict the best average value, and they are also used to describe the data, right? How your data will look, means they just give you the pattern, how the data will look in a particular pattern, right? And if you have to give the data a shape, then we use the measure of shape, right? So now come to the another part of data cleaning. What does data cleaning means? Means if you have a data set, and there are some rows and the columns, but in that data set a particular cell is empty, is null. So when we have to deal with these types of value, that is the data complete or not, right? You have to check that the data is complete or not. So that particular process is known as data cleaning. That process will be called as data cleaning, where you just deal with the complex data. You just keep on checking that the data is complete or not, is there any missing or null value in that data or not, right? So that is the meaning, basically the meaning of data cleaning, right? To handle the complex data. Data cleaning also gives a product, a tool, that is called as EDA, that I also talked about in the last videos also, that what is EDA. So that let's come to the part of EDA. What is EDA? EDA basically means exploratory data analysis, means when we just explore the data and do its analysis. You can just take this meaning from the name also. So basically EDA is a tool used to describe the data and used for visualizing the data, right? How you just visualize the data? Visualization means when we just interpret the data and make the graphs, the scatter plots, the pie charts and box plots from them. Describe the data when we use something, the methods, the functions that we are using, that data.describe, right? I will tell you those functions also. Isnal.sum, data.count, used to count the number of lines, used to count the and data.describe is used to find all the data types, that is the data type integer or not, right? Is the data type, you can say, character, right? So that is used in describing the data, and visualizing includes the scatter plot, the graph and the pie chart, right? So this is basically the part of EDA. EDA basically is a very important tool used in data cleaning, right? So I discussed that what is the visual method. Visual method is used for shaping the data, right? So the purpose of visual method is also to interpret the data, right? How the data will look in a particular pattern, right? So another part, the last part of this lecture is anomalies. That what does the word anomaly mean? Anomaly simply means that when we discussed in the data cleaning part, that a particular cell remains empty due to a technical reason or any other reason in the model or in downloading the data set, a particular cell remains empty, right? It can be any row or a column, right? It doesn't have a fixed cell, right? So that remains empty. And if you just do not clean this data set and you just make the graph from that, you will, suppose I just download this data set and I do not clean it, right? I do not just handle this complex data with the help of EDA. I download it and performed the visualization method on it, and then I make the graph from it. But here I saw that in the x-axis, means in the horizontal or in the vertical axis of this particular graph, one point will remain always empty in that, because I didn't clean this particular cell. I didn't just notice this, I used it as it is, right? So this particular thing is called anomaly. That gives birth to the anomaly, means a particular data point remains empty when I do not clean the data, right? So this is basically gives a direction to then another topic, that is hypothesis. We discussed it earlier also, that what does hypothesis means. It is basically the start of any assumption or any research, right? Basically when we have to research about something, we do these assumptions from our side also, right? That suppose I just take the case and I just perform the experiments on that, right? So that is basically the hypothesis. But here what does it mean, that hypothesis, if the hypothetically testing required, means when I am just training the data, I will take an assumption from my side that in this case the testing is required or not. So that is basically the hypothetically testing in that. So in this particular lecture we just discussed about the 4 types of measures in stats, the anomalies, data cleaning, that is very important, and EDA, right, is a tool that is very important in visualization and describing the data. So this is all about today's lecture. In next lecture we will discuss about IQR, right? That is very important also. So thank you. Have a nice day.